It makes horrific reading, the history of the Bayley case. And Greg Davies, Secretary of the Police Association, says it's the most catastrophic failure of the justice system he's seen in more than 35 years as a police officer. Greg, good morning to you.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Terribly disheartening for police.
Oh, disheartening for police, but nowhere near as disheartening, obviously, for the family of Jill Meagher and for the rest of the community, all of whom have become a victim of this bloke.
What ought to have happened, Greg?
Well, you've got to wonder, I suppose, if you go right back to the start, the whole thing is a tragedy of errors. Very few people find themselves in court for the very first offence they've ever committed. Now, I know the courts can only deal with what's put before them, but you're a good player out of luck if you get caught and put before the courts the first time you do something wrong. Mm-hmm. He's had multiple rape convictions. The maximum penalty for rape is 25 years. Well, we don't know what's going to happen in his sentencing, but I would have thought if ever there was a case for 25 years for a rape, 25 years for a murder, and do them cumulatively, this might be the one. He's multiple times he's committed rapes, each of which could have carried 25 years, but obviously didn't. And then he gets, because he apparently behaves himself, cons the parole board the first time, gets out and commits more rapes, goes back in, and tells the parole board the second time, I told you a heap of porkies last time, but this time I'm really repentant and I'm full of remorse and I'm a good fellow, let me go. And this is the end result. The whole question of parole in our system is a real anachronism, and anyone who tells you it's done so people can be rehabilitated into the community is deluding themselves. It's so you can free up space in jail, and because it's cheaper than keeping them incarcerated.
Well, there were two loopholes here, and I'd like to hear what your view would be on how they could be fixed. One was that while on parole, the parole board knew that he'd committed this assault on a fellow and broke his jaw. That didn't cause the revocation of his parole, and one of the conditions of his parole was that he lived with his parents. He had a blue with them, and they were worried about his behaviour, so he was then allowed to go and live with his girlfriend. Well,
that just shows you how ludicrous the system is, John. Apparently, and I'll stand to be corrected, but I'm advised on very good authority that the parole board didn't breach him on the offence at Geelong. Because he appealed against the severity of the sentence. Now, a fellow with his prior convictions gets 3 months for breaking a fellow's jaw and reckons that's a severe sentence. Well, he didn't.
And on what basis would you not revoke his parole? Because the guilt is not in question; it's the length of his sentence.
Well, that's exactly right. And the information that I'm given is that the parole board decided that they let these things go to appeal and see what the final result is first. Well, we know what's happened in the interim.
Greg, I read that in June of 1990, he held a teenage girl hostage in his home and raped her. In August of that year, he attacked a girl 17 walking home from a bus stop. In July 2000, he changed his name by deed poll. Can you do that, can you?
Well, that's our legal system. I won't call it a justice system because there's not a lot of justice dispensed, certainly not for victims. The idea is incarceration deprives people of their liberty, and that's the penalty. You can still do just about anything else that you want to do that's available for any other person to do.
Greg, finally, is there a policeman or a former policeman on the parole board?
I believe there may recently have been a former policeman appointed to the parole board, and I hope...
is that Kieran Walsh?
That's my understanding, and I hope he takes with him the knowledge that more than half of all serious crime that's committed in Victoria is committed by parolees.